Welcome back to Hurley's Hobbies. Well, I've been doing more progress on the GeeBee. I'll get into it. Let's get a building. All right, as you can see, I got my wing or canopy mounts all put in. Also got my scallops in up here. I got these all finished down here, and the whole canopy's covered. I still got to put the floor in plus the little dash. I got to do that yet, but everything else is ready. The canopy's pretty much, I got a little bit more work to do along this seam right here. A little bit of fill to do. But the other side came out better yet. So I'll unbolt the canopy and I'll get it off and I'll show you what I did on the inside. All right, got the bolts out. I'll take the canopy off. Nice snug fit. And as you can see, I made some plates here. I made 4 of them. And then I put a little piece of balsa on the inside here. See if we can show that. It's going to be kind of hard to see. There's some balsa in there. I shaped it so these would set nice and flat and give them something to mount to. Put some blind nuts in with a little bit of collar to offset them a little bit. And I did that on all 4 corners. So the canopy came out pretty good. See, there's a little bit of a line here. It's got to be filled. Right there. That line needs to be filled. That's what I got to fill. But the other side came out more beautiful, nice and flush. So that's that. And then if you see in here, I put some balsa blocks in here. And also up here, I added a little bit of sheeting to get it to where I wanted it. And I put some plastic tubes in. See if I can grab them here. 3/16 tubing. And I shoved it in and cut them off and sanded them flush. So it gives me a little bit of a hard point there for the bolts to go through and also guides them. So I got all those done. So back here on the back of the canopy, this is still pretty flimsy. I'm trying to debate if I want to cut another one of these and put a second one with a little bit of filler, 1/4-inch gap in it to stiffen this up a little bit. I know when I glue it to the canopy, it's going to stiffen it up, but I was debating on if I wanted to do this to bring it out a little bit and have a 1/4-inch balsa going around it. But then it's going to add weight to the back. So I'm still going back and forth on that if I want to add some strength to this. As of now, I'm going to leave it, but I'll come up with that later when we do the canopy. All right, I got the plane out of here and into the other room. So I'm going to get started on the rudder. I got my rudder ribs here. I end up putting a pin through them and then clamping them together so I could sand to make sure that the bottom of these are even. And then I forgot to cut out for the front 1/2-inch piece here they call for on the plans. I forgot to cut that out, so I went through and recut it on my laser. Cutting that thick, you got to do it, and I would run my laser 6 passes, and then I would let it set, and then run 6 more passes on low. And it took me quite a few times to do that to get it to burn through this 1/2-inch balsa. But it did come out nice. So this is the way it is. I did lightly etch on it where the ribs go and then where my hinges are going to come through, because I am going to use G10. I'm going to use some G10, and so then my rudder will be removable, and I am going to use the rod. This is the rod I set it up for This is 1/8 inch rod. It was pretty cheap. It was only $1.79 for it. I actually had this. I bought it a couple years ago, so I can bend that. So then I can make my rudder rod, and it does show it on the plans. It even has the plans for the hinge for the G10. I did try to cut that on my laser, and you cannot cut G10 on the laser because all it does is make it really, really brittle, and they will just break. So I only need 4 of them for this rudder. So excuse me. So I'm probably just gonna cut them out by hand. I don't have a small CNC machine. I thought about buying one, a cheap one, just to cut them out, but it's still gonna be like probably $200, and then with the software and everything, it says you can use Lightburn for CNC, but I think I'm probably just gonna hand cut them. That's what I did on the Corsair. All the hinges for that, I cut them by hand, so I'll probably do the same thing with this and just cut them by hand. So before I sanded the ends, I noticed that they weren't coming back as far. These top cuts were not coming back quite as far as they need to come. The ribs need to come back. So, and I didn't realize when I actually cut all these ribs, I actually cut double of them. So, probably because when I cut the wings, you had to cut 2 of everything. I end up cutting 2 of everything of these too. So, I do have some extra ones, but I'm probably not going to try to notch these because they're pretty thin. Notch these back. I'm probably going to notch the notch in here back. Figure out how far back I got to notch them, and then I'll notch them by hand. So that's the next thing to do is to get it out of here, get these clamps off, get them out, figure out where they got to go. So then I can start figuring out how far back I need to notch each one. So I have this pretty much set up exactly where it needs to go. The fin might be sticking out just a hair past it, but it's pretty much where it needs to be. So what I'm going to do, grab my pen, whatever I did with it, and I'll set this here, and I'll mark that notch on here so I know how far to cut it. Looks like 196 millimeters. 196 millimeters. So I'll set my ruler here. I think I'm just going to go 197. Give myself a little bit of play. Check that again. Yeah, it's actually 197. So that should be the mark. 197. All right, that's that one. Make sure I'm still on. So that's that one. So we'll grab the next one, which is R4, and we'll measure that one. So this one here is the worst one. It needs to come down back in here farther. This one, I just need to square up that corner. This one needs to go a little bit. This one, and then that one. So I'll get notching those out, and then I'll come back. All right, I end up standing it up. They keep falling out of position, but they're all pretty much there. So I think how I'm going to do this is I am going to stand them up one at a time and glue them to the balsa down here. Use my 1, 2, 3 blocks and get them glued into place. And go on through and get them glued on. So I'll be back after I get all that done and we'll move on to the next thing. All right, I got these glued in, but this big part isn't glued in, but I got it all fitted and I'm going to glue it together. These I epoxied these in. I took blocks and set them here and got them in line, and that's how I did that. But I used epoxy for that, and I probably should have used wood glue because the wood glue would have been had time to soak in before it dried. It might have been a little bit stronger than the epoxy, but I'm already there. So this time, for the outside pieces, I'm going to use wood glue. And I already fitted this together, of course. And so now I'm going to go down and start gluing all these in. Didn't glue on them. Get them nice and saturated. The idea of the blocks is just to try to keep it flat as it dries because you can't really put it on a flat surface. So that's my idea behind the blocks. I'm going to grab some clamps, make sure it's over. Clamped in place, nice and secure. Just in case I get any glue dripping down here, I want to put some paper towel under. Make sure it's flat on the ends. Okay. Everything's where it needs to be. And so now I'm going to let it sit, let that glue dry. We'll be back. All right, that's mostly dried. And I got a next thing in the line is to fit it here so I can figure out what pieces I got to do, if I got to change down here. So I laser cut a wood piece of it so I can cut these out. So that's the next thing to do. And then I believe this, if by looking through, it's got to go somewhere in here. Somewhere about in there is where it needs to go according to the way it is on here. So but that right there is pretty much lined up. So it's a massive rudder. Gonna make this plane even a lot bigger. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna let this make sure it dries some more, and I'll start penciling these out and getting them cut. So I didn't get the hinges cut out yet, but I wanted to get this tube in here. I have more of this right here. I want to run tube through between every one of these. But the top one here has to come all the way through it. So I got to cut this wood out, put this tube in here. I'll get it lined up with the rod, and then I'll glue it in. And this top tube needs to have a gap in it. So when the hinge is in there, the hinge can come through it. I went over and grabbed some wood pieces. I want to put some wood in here. I'm just pushing the tube through it. I'm leaving it a little long so I can sand it. I'm just going to CA this in to the wood. I'll epoxy it later. So that's what it's looking like. I got a gap in there for the hinge, and I can pull the rod right out. That way the rod will go through a lot smoother that way, but there's a guide for it, just like a wing tube. So I'll continue on and get the rest of them done, leaving gaps for the hinges. It's the next day. I end up working on this. I put a piece of wood on here, a piece of ply. Didn't want this to be able to flex, so instead of using balsa, I use ply on that. And I also put some little blocks in here to help stiffen those up, and that gives something for the hinge to butt up against when they go in. Gives it something to stop against. and it stiffened that up from just floating out there. And so when I end up cutting the hinges off camera, I end up leaving them square on the end instead of notched out like that. So they had that notch in there because the slot in the back here is actually quite a bit wider than even these. So I left them on there, give it a little bit more strength. And the slots here and the slots here, like the top two you could line up, and then this one and this one would line up, and this one had to be lifted. So on the plane they need to be lifted. So you can only line like these two up, or you could line these two up. So the way it lined up better was with the top ones, so I left that. So I had to notch out in the plane and move them up a little bit. I'll bring the camera in and show you. So I'm going to have to put some more ply back in there and fill that gap in and epoxy it in. So this is what I was talking about. I had to notch these out and notch this one out. So I'll put some light ply in there and epoxy it in. So then that'll help bring a little bit of strength to that back into it. I never checked and made sure this was exactly the same as those. So that's all I can do for now. So we're gonna end the video there, and I'll get this sanded off camera because I gotta taper this, and I'll get this top piece sanded, and I'll show you how it turned out on the next video. And hopefully in the next video we get that rudder finished up and then get onto the elevator, building the elevators. So if you like what you're seeing, please like, subscribe, and share. And we'll see you on the next one. Keep it building. I'm a pusher with no brakes. I'm invincible. I win every single